Marketing is really just the art of telling a story and the art of persuasion mixed into one, rolled up with the art of building a brand and letting the right eyeballs know about it. That sort of sums it up. And within marketing, that old adage, if a tree fell in the forest and nobody saw or heard it, did it fall? It applies, right? If we don't talk about it, it doesn't exist.
Welcome to the Young Changemakers podcast season 4. In this episode, we will be talking to inspiring young people from all around the world to explore how they are making a positive change in their communities. This podcast is a global Changemakers production. To learn more about how you can also make a difference, visit our website global-changemakers.net. Enjoy the episode. So welcome to the Young Changemakers podcast, to a new episode. We are today with Zach and Irina from Galacticfed. They found us through the podcast itself, and we are running a really cool collaboration. They are helping us bring you all the experiences that we have through marketing. So perhaps, Zach, would you like to tell us what is Galacticfed and how it started?
Absolutely. And thank you, Sarah, and the Global Changemakers organization as a whole for having us on. We're really excited to be chatting with you today and everyone listening. So Galacticfed is a company that Irina and I, my co-founder, started in late 2017, early 2018. We are a digital marketing agency. So we help companies run their digital marketing, whether that's the ads you see on Google and Facebook, or helping companies rank higher on Google, or building different websites and writing blogs and content for them. We do all sorts of things like that for companies probably that you've heard of around the world, from small ones up to big ones. So one interesting thing about Galacticfed, that we got our starts in the remote work and digital nomad movements. Those two things are very near and dear to Irina and myself. I myself have been a digital nomad, traveling full-time since 2016 and haven't paid rent since then. I'm sure we'll get more into the digital nomad conversation later on in the discussion. Talking more about Galacticfed though, Irina and I started this from essentially her kitchen in Chicago, huddled around building our first website with our first employee, Tom. And we always really believed, again, in this remote work type of ethos. We thought that by building a remote company, we could hire the best people in the world, no matter where they are. We wouldn't have to focus on things like real estate and offices and these sorts of things. We could build a truly global collaborative community that brings in the cultures from different people around the world. So since those first huddling around Irina's kitchen days, we've since scaled the business to, I think last I checked, 156 employees in over 20 countries around the world. So at any given time, there's always a Galacticfed employee working on their own time zone, because with the exception of some roles, we typically try to work in an asynchronous environment where we allow employees to do things on their own time, whether that's the time zone in, say, Manila or Barcelona or Singapore or Medellin or New York. We really care about giving people a good work-life balance and allowing them to have time to take off during the day for a workout class or to drop their kids off at school or whatever it may be. We're a very flexible organization. And one thing that's really empowered us through that is we're very, I won't say anti, but against phone calls in often ways, which sounds a bit counterintuitive in a way, right? We're a company that runs marketing for other clients. I'm sure they want to chat with us a lot. And we do have customer-facing folks and sales who chat with our clients on a regular basis. But internally as a company, we really try to do as much as possible, as I mentioned, asynchronously, which means without working at the same time. So we do lots of things in writing, on Slack, on ClickUp and other tools, and allow people to discuss and talk in writing so that their time isn't spent up with 20 plus hours per week of calls, and they can focus it on actually getting work done and enjoying their lives. As an example, Dallin, our marketing director, with whom Sarah spoke, I believe, before setting us up, I think he has exactly 2 calls on his calendar per week for a grand total of 1 hour per week of scheduled calls. And he's a director level position at the company. So that's something that we really care about, is both remote and asynchronous, giving power and flexibility back to our team and making everybody happy. And that's Galacticfed. We really enjoy what we do, and we've helped lots of companies grow. And it makes me and Irina happy to be able to do that every day.
And you didn't mention how young and diverse your team is. So perhaps you want to talk a little bit about that, diversity and inclusion of young people, because you yourselves are very young.
Yes, we are quite young. I am 30. Irina is 33. Irina?
That's correct. Yep.
33, yeah. So yeah, we're pretty young. When I started Galacticfed with Irina, I think I was 25. So we were quite young when we began this business, and Irina obviously was 28 then. Given that we are young and we have these sorts of the sort of ethos of being inclusive and making sure that we're taking care of everybody, especially since we have a global organization, we are, I'd say, our company tends to be younger, skews young as far as the people we hire, and we're not afraid to promote people quickly regardless of their age, provided they have the competence and experience to do things. We're not afraid to hire people without a college degree, per se. Not afraid to hire people who don't even have functional expertise in a particular area for given roles if they seem like the right fit. That said, too, though, obviously we have people at every age range of the spectrum, and we certainly wouldn't discriminate against someone in their 60s, say, who applied here if they were the right person for the job. Additionally, from a gender, ethnicity, multicultural perspective, we're extremely inclusive in that regard. I believe we have more women in leadership in the business right now than men. Additionally, I mean, we are technically a US-based company, of course, legally, but the vast majority of our employees, probably something like 130 plus of those 156, are based outside of the US in every shade, shape, and color. And we really try to honor the different holidays and cultural practices and observe everything from Ramadan to Christmas to Canada Day to whatever holidays and celebrations people may have. And we have a fun culture internally where we're constantly celebrating, I don't know, the Independence Day of this one nation, or the Day of the Dead and this other one, and all these sorts of things. And I personally really enjoy it because I've learned a lot from the people we work with about the way that they honor their holidays and the way that they get work done. And it's been really interesting seeing this sort of blend of working styles, cultures, and approaches to life. I think everyone at the company's learned a lot from it. Would you agree, Irina?
Absolutely. I've often said to Zach that this has been, in many ways, like another college degree, like something even better than going to school, like a school of life where you're really interacting with people on a global level every day.
Yes, you learn so much, different perspectives, different cultures, different everything. So I definitely think that is something to celebrate. And so far, we've spoken about Galacticfed as a company, a very successful one, a very diverse, but a traditional company. And perhaps, Irina, you would like to talk about how you make an impact through Galactic Good.
Absolutely. Yeah, so Galactic Good sprung during the pandemic. This is our nonprofit arm of Galacticfed. We both saw a need to build a nonprofit when we decided that we wanted to quickly assemble a mask drive during the pandemic. That's how it first began. Through Galactic Good, we've since been able to do a variety of things for good. Recently, with the war in the Ukraine, through Galactic Good and joint efforts with our other partners, we were able to help provide temporary shelter in neighboring Romania to 20 women and children. And nowadays, and for several years now, we've been working through Galactic Good to provide nonprofits with nonprofit marketing pricing. So we work with a variety of nonprofits and NGOs, who cover a variety of very important and relevant projects that bring social change around the world. We haven't focused our lenses strictly on American nonprofits and NGOs. We've branched out internationally, just like our company. So lately, we've helped grow a nonprofit that, for example, builds homes in developing countries. We've also helped grow an NGO targeting youth literacy, and one offering educational guidance to American parents, to name a few. Both giving back and paying it forward are two concepts that have always been very close to Zach and to myself. And through Galactic Good, it's our hope that we can do just that by making digital marketing, a very barrier, lowering the barriers of entry to that and making it something that is widely available to nonprofits that are doing good.
Yeah, because talking from that nonprofit perspective, I believe that we're very good at whatever it is that we do, but perhaps we're not experts on marketing, so we don't know how to make a bigger impact. And that is where expert companies like yourself come in and say, okay, you're doing this, and the good thing about you guys that I've found is that you don't have a separate team per se for that, but the experts on, for example, Google Ads or social marketing in social media are the same people that will talk to the nonprofits that you're helping. So you don't
Exactly. Yes. It is exactly the same team who works both on Galactic Good marketing and overall Galactic Fed marketing. It's just about us wanting to use our powers for good through our team by working with nonprofits and NGOs. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also good, if I may add too, because
yeah.
our team loves these types of clients they can work with. When most of their time is spent helping still very cool and interesting, but more technical types of businesses, say a software company looking to expand their financial services or something.
B2B
Sometimes
SaaS,
it can be
etc.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it can be fun sometimes for our team to work with a company helping research on dementia, or helping a business like Global Changemakers to expand their access, because that's something new that they can do, and that's sort of a perk in a way. And again, we typically do not charge the nonprofits for this work that we do for them, and when we do, it is a very low and at cost type of payment.
Yeah, and something that we realized, and every more so often, because we've seen the impact of digital marketing and how this is growing. So it used to be very easy. Well, I'm saying very easy, but I don't know, 40 years ago, a person working at a traditional ad company, how they would feel. But there was a point when it was all sort of invented, and everything was like, okay, you want to run a campaign, these are the steps, this is where you can put it, you could put it on TV, on the radio, on this and there. But we've seen how this digital marketing space is growing, and now it's unthinkable not to have a strategy there. So perhaps you would like to talk about this impact of digital marketing.
Absolutely. So I think the thing to start with here is, as we sort of touched upon in our because point, whether you're helping a global change maker or a for-profit company, the nuts and bolts of digital marketing remain the same, because marketing is really just the art of telling a story and the art of persuasion mixed into one, rolled up with the art of building a brand and letting the right eyeballs know about it. That sort of sums it up. And within marketing, that old adage, if a tree fell in the forest but nobody saw or heard it, did it fall? It applies, right? If we don't talk about it, it doesn't exist these days. And everything has become digital. The number one source of discovery of anything is through our phones. So digital marketing has definitely taken over traditional marketing. And within that, you can see there being two main categories, one being paid advertising and the other being SEO. And Zach can speak a little bit more to paid advertising, but within SEO, as you mentioned 40 years ago, it was a whole different playing field. You can even say that 15, 20 years ago, SEO was a bit of a hacker science. People trying to guess what the Google algorithm looks like by reverse engineering, by running experiments, but nobody really knowing how Google works, how Google sorts information. So SEO is really about, these days, almost like being a lawyer. It's about understanding the canon, the best practices that Google has put out there, about how they have determined how to run a truly great working internet. And through these best practices around how to build content, how to earn quality links from relevant websites, etc., SEO experts advise companies on how to do those in the best possible way to tell their story. And Zach can speak a little bit more on paid advertising and its impact on the world.
Sure. So whereas Irina gave a great analogy for SEO, we're the lawyers there, we understand, we interpret, and we implement. Yes. On paid media, there's been a similar evolutionary approach in advertising. I'd say whereas traditionally, 1960s Mad Men style advertising with billboards, with glossy, maybe movie ads and things like that, it was much more of a paint by numbers approach, where you hoped that you'd get enough eyeballs because you had this billboard on the right highway that people commute to and from, or in the right place, or the right actor talking about it on the TV. Nowadays, with paid media advertising, which for those who don't know is Google ads, Facebook, Instagram ads, basically all of the advertisements you see on the internet, whereas SEO is more focused on the organic results within Google. So the ad side of things, it's much more paint by preferences rather than paint by numbers. We can really understand what an individual is looking for down to where they live, what their past preferences are, the types of things they're interested in, how old they are, what their gender is, and all these sorts of things to really build an ad campaign that targets exactly those types of people that our client or customer may be looking for. Now, this may sound a little bit creepy, and it can be in ways. I'd like to be clear that we do not know anything about any individual. It's more that the ad campaigns are set up in a way that they can find these people. But that said, it really is good in a way, because whereas you might have been driving down the highway and seeing ads for Coca-Cola, but you never drink soda, now the only ads you see, theoretically, if they're being run by someone who knows what they're doing like us, the ads you see should be tailored to you. They're ads that if you're not into Coca-Cola, well, maybe you're getting an ad for green tea. If you're not really into traveling, maybe you're getting an ad for adoption for pets. And really making sure that the advertisement is tailored to the individual, and most importantly, trackable too. Whereas previously with these TV commercials, billboards, etc., you kind of hoped they work, and maybe you had some sort of backhanded way of measuring them. But with paid media advertising, you could truly see this many people clicked on this many ads, and those clicks drove this many sales. And that's something that companies really like to see, because they know that for every dollar that I put into my paid media advertising campaigns, I get roughly $4 or $5 back. Ipso facto, this is a good investment. So that's the summary I would give for paid media.
Exactly. And when you put these two sections of digital marketing together, paid advertising and SEO, you create what we call a sort of aura effect, where the two sort of help each other out within the marketing strategy. If you're consistently producing excellent articles, content that makes sense, that speaks to your target audience, you're earning those quality links, appearing in the right parts of the internet, in the right communities where it makes sense to advertise and to talk about your product or service, and you're building the right ads targeting to the right audience with those preferences, you're essentially building a multi-channel digital marketing machine.
Yeah, great point, Irina. It's a very 1 + 1 = 3 in that regard.
Yes.
And I'd like to add too that there are many other services that Galacticfed offers, as I hinted towards earlier. We'll help work with influencers to do marketing that way. We'll help build blog content. We'll help create websites. We'll help do email marketing. But the reason we talk about SEO and paid media specifically is because that is where we see the majority of investment of marketing dollars from our clients going, and typically going across the digital media spectrum. That said, of course, there are many other ways that skin the cat, if you will.
Do you perhaps have an example of an organization that you met through Galactic Good that has realized how important the impact of digital marketing is and has shifted whatever they're doing?
Actually, we do. We have a few published case studies on our website. One of them is a Google Ads client we had in the nonprofit space. Their name is Aspire Education. What they actually do, it's better that you visit their website and learn about their mission directly. They help guide parents and help provide education consulting. And we work with Aspire Education by offering Google Ads. We identified with our team of Google Ads specialists that in the case of Aspire Education, Google was a very useful and practical platform on which to advertise. So we started a campaign there, and we were able through our Google Ads campaigns to achieve a conversion that was 27% higher than the industry benchmark.
Wow.
In this case, Aspire Education's industry. Yeah. So this speaks again to Zach's earlier point that with paid advertising, you can really hyper-focus these days on preference, on individual preference, and build a campaign that really can be high conversion.
Many of these nonprofits we work with, often they can be quite small, or more importantly, they don't really have much of a budget. So normally the solutions they have are to pay a good bit for, say, an agency that specializes in nonprofits that charges them money for it. But in the example of Aspire Education, we didn't charge them anything at all for the services that we've provided to them and continue to provide for them. So I think that was also a way that they realized additional ROI, which was able to help them achieve their mission.
So I know that Google, for example, offers a grant for nonprofits so that you can use your budget in your campaigns. But the thing is, you need to know how to use that budget.
One of the things that we're always kind of bummed to see sometimes is when a company had a great opportunity, like one of these grants if they're a nonprofit, or some budget allocated if they're a for-profit business, to try out a new channel, say Google Ads, Instagram ads, something like that. And the person managing, maybe through no fault of their own, but didn't really know what they were doing. It's their first time that they were learning. And because of that, they may have squandered that budget, squandered that opportunity. Say it was a $10,000 budget. Well, they concluded that Google Ads don't work for their business because the campaign didn't work well. Whereas really, if they had experts and people knew what they were doing managing that money instead, they might have seen a 4 or 5x return on investment rather than seeing nothing at all.
We have a similar thing on the SEO side too. We often have clients who, go into SEO, but don't realize that very much what you put in is what you get out of it in terms of spend. And also it's a process that takes a lot more time than paid advertising to come to fruition. It could even take 6, maybe even up to 12 months to consistently run SEO before you see results. Sometimes folks pull out too early thinking that it doesn't work when they just weren't living up to the right expectations for success.
Hi there! We hope you're enjoying the episode so far. At Global Changemakers, we support youth to create a positive change towards more inclusive, fair, and sustainable communities. We do this by providing skills development, capacity building, mentoring, and grants. Head to our website, global-changemakers.net, to join our programs and use our resources. Now on with the rest of the episode.
Have you seen a pattern that could translate into tips for young people out there that have their projects, are starting out and are saying, okay, I'm gonna start a marketing strategy? I know that is incredibly complex, but if you could tell us like the most common mistakes that you've seen.
I could start with one really high level point, which is fail quickly, fail very quickly. This is just a principle on a low budget. So find the bare minimum you need to fail quickly, test rapidly, quickly see what channels work for you, what channels do not. And again, I know there's a conflicting idea here because we also need to have the right budgets in place to see that impact. But it is really important, and this is something Zach and I have really brought into our company, and we've also cherished this from our technical backgrounds, but the idea of testing things out. In the beginning, you probably don't want to go blindly in one direction and say, okay, I'm going to dump all of this into X, Y, and Z campaigns, but rather you want to take that money and test. And really starting with paid advertising, for example, is a good tip, I think, right, Zach? Because with that, you're often able to see, you can quickly measure ROI, you're able to test audiences.
I think that's a good point, Irina, around the failing fast situation. And I think to elaborate what that means, it's important to make sure that while you do want to fail fast, it's also important to make sure that you allocated enough time or budget or whatever was the limiting factor in the beginning to adequately complete that test. So another thing we'll see is people will invest only $500 into a campaign, and then they'll conclude that it did not work, say on Facebook advertising. Whereas in actuality, for their business, for their industry, for the type of campaigns they were running, that initial $500 may be, the investment that was just helping the Facebook algorithm learn for their particular business. And if they had continued to invest another 500, 1,000, 2,000, 10,000, 100,000, or whatever it may have been, they might have finally started seeing a positive return of that initial investment they made if they had not given up on it so fast. So I think it's important to strike the balance between failing fast, but also allocating enough of your limiting factor, whether that's money or time, towards allowing the test to see through to completion. And also, I think it's important too, when you're starting marketing, let's say you're doing this yourself, if you don't have the budget to afford someone like us to help you, there's lots of different ways you could market. You could post on Reddit forums, you could do Google ads or Facebook ads. Even just the pay media realm could be confusing and overwhelming. You could do SEO, you could write blog content, you could do influencer marketing, email marketing. There's all these options you could do. And you may be tempted to say, my buddy works in this agency and he does email marketing and I know that works well, so that's what I'm going to do. But it's really important to research for your particular business, your particular industry, what typically works best for the types of businesses that you're in. For example, if you're selling some sort of physical e-commerce object, in that case, it might make sense to try on Facebook or social media advertising to begin with. Whereas if you have more of a larger budget, long-term type approach, it might make sense to start, say, on SEO and content and build up your brand's presence. Whereas if you just trusted the advice of a few random people, you may not be able to pick up those insights. So it's important to shop around and do research.
And those are all really great points, Zach. Maybe consider, especially if you're starting to do your own SEO, research and build some customer personas. Ask yourself, what do those profiles look like? What are the target people that would best benefit from my product or service? You'd be surprised how often people skip this very crucial step. Like really sit down and write those profiles out, and then try to reverse engineer what that discovery process might look like. Is your product or service something that already exists and you're competing with? Or is it something you're introducing to the market and you also have to educate the market on its value? Because that's going to be a whole different type of discovery process. A really big tip, I think, is, start with identifying what those profiles look like. And like Zach mentioned, what are those online communities where you want to plug into those combos that are relevant to your product and service? Plug yourself in there.
I love how aligned this is to the design thinking process. So the advice you were giving, which is phenomenal, sort of follows the steps that we teach our change makers through that design thinking process. Learning about the problem, whatever your service is, whatever you're trying to, or the problem you're trying to solve, or whatever you want to do. Emphasizing with the people that you're trying to help. So understanding that persona and giving it, we often ask our change makers to draw them to, okay, what else do they do? What are their hobbies? What are their,
exactly. What are their aspirations?
Exactly.
Yes.
Start ideating and prototyping really fast so that you can fail quickly and come back and ask the people that you're trying to help or you're trying to sell something to or give a service to, and ask them, what do you think of this? How can you evaluate this and make it better? So I absolutely loved your tip.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And I'm glad to hear that our words are matching with your curriculum. I think that's good to hear.
And perhaps we want to go back to the digital nomad life that you just mentioned in the beginning. I've heard that you love to work remotely, and I think that is something that can be very exciting and new. But there's also some challenges. So perhaps you would like to zoom in to that nomad life, and then we can discuss some tips and tricks, if you may.
Sure thing. So this is something that Irina and I both have experience in, dating back half a decade or more. I'd say at the current moment, this is something that I've been investing in quite a lot over time. So I'll take this. As I mentioned earlier, I've been fully remote since 2016 and haven't paid rent anywhere since that year. I typically live in Europe for the summer. During winters, I move to Africa, Asia, or Latin America. And then for the fall and spring, maybe somewhere in between, maybe back home visiting my family in Tennessee. I'd say on a bell curve of digital nomads, where most stay in one place for 3 to 6 months, on the far right, they might stay somewhere for a year or two. I'm on the far left. I move every week on average. So I'm a very fast traveler. I live out of my carry-on suitcase and backpack only, 8 shirts, 2 pairs of pants, that sort of thing for the last 6 years.
Wow.
It's been a lot of fun. And, I've seen a lot of the world. I've been to 55 countries so far and obviously learned a lot. I'm currently in Albania, for example, right now. I'm on a balcony looking at a big fake wooden pirate ship go by and some jet skis spinning around it with some mountains in the distance and the sun setting. It's really pretty. But you were talking about some of the challenges in this lifestyle. I'd say the benefits are quite self-evident in a way. It's fun. Obviously, you meet new and interesting people. You get to expand your scope of the world and see things that you might not have otherwise. Additionally, booking a one-way ticket and really just kind of winging it and going from there allows you to really go more deep and see more of the world when you're traveling too, rather than, say, doing a vacation or only visiting somewhere for a week or two. And obviously, this is a privilege that not everybody has. I hope in the future more people will be able to travel remotely and stay and travel for extended periods of time. But it's a really enjoyable thing to be able to do, provided you can keep friendships and relationships and stuff like that strong, however you may. One way you do that is by traveling with other people you're close with. For example, this winter, Irina and I did a 3-month trip through Africa, through Kenya, Tanzania, Zanzibar, and both of the Congos. Irina and I really got to deepen our relationship as co-founders together on that trip, traveling together for 3 months and had a really good time there. So as far as some of the challenges, obviously there are some. I think there are challenges in any lifestyle. Yeah. Obviously there are challenges staying put and working at home. Some of them in this lifestyle, I'll talk first just personal ones briefly and then more of the work ones. Personally, obviously, it can be tough to maintain relationships, both with family and friends and that sort of thing, when you're constantly moving all the time, unless you have people who can travel with you as well. It can be expensive if you're not budgeting correctly and if you're not deliberate about where you go and when and where you stay and that sort of thing. These things can really add up. It can be distracting from work if you're not careful and used to it. And have set up a good, healthy lifestyle. Obviously too, if you're used to working out and that sort of thing, it takes extra effort as well to get that jog in every morning or find a gym nearby, even if it can be quite far away. From a work side of things, I'd say, again, there are pros and cons. I'll start with the pros. I love being able to just wake up and I'm right in my office and I don't need to go to a certain place to get work done. I feel like I can communicate and collaborate with our team across the world at any time, provided that they're free and available at the moment. I can get work done in my own way, whether that's on the couch, if that's just wearing a hoodie and sitting at the table, if that's on a balcony, if that's by the beach, whatever I feel like at the time would make me most productive, I'm able to do that and engage with it and really have a more solitary and focused work environment, which is helpful for me. I say some of the cons, as I mentioned earlier, the lifestyle around you as a digital nomad can be distracting. If you're doing it right, having a good time, there should be lots of fun things and distracting things around you. So I think it's really important for digital nomads, especially new ones, to keep in mind that this is a lifestyle you're trying to build, not a fun trip. You need to always put work first. Always make sure that your job and your responsibilities get done before anything else, because those are the things that unlock the fun stuff and allow you to be able to do the things that you really enjoy. So yeah, I'd say cons too. I'm extremely pro remote, and Irina is as well. So it's hard for me to think of too many cons from a direct workplace perspective. But I will say there's nothing that can replace meeting somebody in real life. And that's something that Irina and I both try to do when we travel to these different countries when possible, is to meet up with our team members and even sometimes their families from around the world when we're traveling. And I think that allows for really a more intimate way to get to know somebody too. I always find it surprising when I meet somebody in real life after talking with them on Slack and on the phone and that sort of stuff for a year, how exactly like I pictured them they are. It's just, that's who they are. And I've known them for so long.
It really does work that way.
Exactly,
we've met colleagues after years of working together, and it's like, that's actually how you are. Wow.
Exactly, yeah. Even it's just kind of fun to get to know people in real life in that sort of way.
And to your point of not finding a lot of cons, I don't feel that there is per se a lot of cons. I feel that there are challenges. I feel that there are things that you have to adjust in terms of project management tools, like you were mentioning, that you use Slack and other tools to keep you organized yourself very, very well. So you have a good work-life balance. You have to adjust time zones, which I seriously have been involved with GCM for 12 years, and time zones still get me. They are incredibly hard. But I feel that it is an adjustment, and I love it that there is the option of working remotely, of building teams in a distance. Since you both manage people remotely, any tip to get your team involved and engaged, and not only, because especially since you mentioned that you don't have a lot of group calls, how do you keep people motivated enough that they want to do their jobs, do the bare minimum?
Yeah. I'll mention briefly on the time zone thing, because that is a good point. Yeah. And then Irina, I'll let you talk. So it's just a quick tip, but I always keep my computer, no matter where I'm in the world, is always in Eastern US time zone. And my phone is always on the local time zone. And my phone is the one that I use to join calls from. So when I'm working on my computer, I'm always in the US time zone mentally. Even if it's midnight in Albania, well, it's only 5 p.m. in the US. So I keep myself grounded in that way. And we built up a schedule where, again, asynchronous is important for us. For example, Irina and I only do calls on Wednesday afternoons now, and no other time of the week. We're recording this podcast on a Wednesday afternoon, for example. But yeah, I think it's useful to keep your computer on your stationary back home time zone, phone or local time zone has always been helpful for me. Irina, I'll let you talk to the motivating the team side of things.
When we talk about motivation, right, this is a thing that is sort of sweeping across our whole society. How do we keep people motivated? We also caught a whiff of this during the pandemic when everyone suddenly had to work online. And we had so many people complaining that they're having such a hard time getting motivated working at home. So we've had to deal with those challenges since before the pandemic, since before it became mainstream.
Yeah.
And we found that building a motivated team really begins with the recruiting step. We simply, from the very beginning, look for and try to find people who are self-starters, who are self-motivated, and who have sort of an innate, strong work ethic. This is very much built into our recruiting team and what they do. So we really look for those self-starters. And within our team, to manage and cultivate and continue to have motivation, we've really helped build a culture where we trust our team. We do not encourage micromanagement. We really want to build a culture where people feel motivated to wake up every day and give 200% because they feel that their work means something, it's valued, that they're seen and heard, and that they're trusted, and that we have accepted that they are capable to do their job. You'd be surprised how much this already motivates, everybody. When you feel like what you're doing is counting for something, and you are being trusted. We've also worked hard since we are all over the place, and it can get a little challenging connecting. We've worked hard to build a strong digital culture within our Slack, which is where we primarily communicate as a team. We have clubs that we've built dedicated to various interests and hobbies, ranging from food to pets, to parenting, to everything in between, travel, art. We also have, on a very regular basis, team bonding experiences. For example, we have team contests. During the pandemic, when we were all, sitting at home during quarantine, we had a walkathon as a company. Whatever country our team was in, we all joined and participated and did something that was both healthy and fun. So I think all of these combined, having a culture that is encouraging connection, trusting the team, starting with that recruiting step of finding self-starters, all of this sort of melanges together into a culture where people feel motivated over time.
I think, like she said, it really starts from the beginning with the people you hire, and then building systems, both quantitative and qualitative, to understand the work that people do in a given week and make sure that we're helping them, allocate their time effectively.
That is beautifully put, Irina and Zach. If you're thinking about how to make those connections between the team members, then they can be independent enough to work by themselves and then feel that they are part of something bigger, and that means something else. So thank you for that, and thank you for your time. I know you're quite busy, but I think this is going to be incredibly helpful for young people out there with their own projects that want to start, that feel that this field of digital marketing is something basic and important and crucial for them to develop their own projects. But
Zach and I are both super call friendly. We love talking to people out there, to companies, to nonprofits. We just within our company internally, we've built a fairly call-less environment inside the company. But we're always here. We're only one LinkedIn message away if anybody ever wants to reach out. We're always happy to have a conversation.
Thank you so much for that, Irina. That helps a lot, because
absolutely,
I know how hard it can be to be a young change maker and not even knowing where to start. So thank you, Zach, Irina, for your tips, your tricks, your comments.
Sounds awesome. Great, Sarah. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, everybody listening right now, for sticking through to the end. I hope that your next big thing you're working on really works out to be a success. And feel free to reach out to myself and Irina if you ever need any help or advice.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you want to reach out, you can contact us via email at info@global-changemakers.net. Send us your comments, questions, or suggestions. Join our global community of young changemakers on Instagram @GlobalChangemakers, Twitter @WeAreGCM, and Facebook. Remember to rate, review, subscribe, and support. To help us continue to inspire more young people, share this podcast on your social media or contribute with your donations. Find all the info and links in the comments below, and see you in the next episode.